Man, did I watch a good show last night. There's one to prove that, Salem, Massachusetts is famous for the 1692 hangings of witches, because people started showing signs of apparently witchcraft. They was having convulsions, the whole 9 yards. They were just sick. And they was wanting to prove it was not witchcraft. They got studying, to make a long story short, they got studying some maps. And now LSD, I can't think of the name of the fungus. I said it 3 or 4 times last night. Still can't. It started, I think, with an O. Anyway, LSD, yes, the narcotic, is made from a fungus of a wheat. I think it's wheat, maybe barley, but let's say it's wheat. But this wheat it must be grown in swampy, and it's got to be like a wet spring or a summer, but it's got to be grown in swampy areas. Well, they got studying some maps, and where all the hangings took place, just not Salem, other parts of the country, I guess other parts of the world, mainly, close to New England. They got studying some maps, and they discovered one thing. That all the hangings, let me hold this camera steady, all the hangings were in virtually the same location as all the swampy areas. So they had to prove it wasn't witchcraft. They had to prove, now this fungus LSD is made from causes the same symptoms as what was recorded in 1692, convulsions, needle pricks to the skin. An author got this going. She wrote some books. She said that sounds like the same conditions of what LSD would do to you. So they got studying, this team got studying these maps and discovered the same areas. Hold on here. Wow. So where these people were witches, apparently witches were hung, accused witches were hung. Same areas where the swampiness, where all that wheat was grown. Well, they found a mummy. That's 50 years ago. They found a mummy that's 2,000 years old. And archaeologists said he was brutally murdered because it showed the mummy. They cut from ear to ear and I think stabbed. But the archaeologists said from what they saw, it looks like he's brutally murdered. So they take his stomach contents. Of course, they liquefy it, 2,000 years old. Guess what they found in his stomach? That same fungus that in 1692, Salem, Massachusetts, that was their main crop, wheat. 2,000 years ago, he ate the same stuff because that same fungus was in her. Now, what made them empty his contents to do that? Because they do know, I guess he's mummified in the state, I don't know, but they do know he was murdered because he was having convulsions 2,000 years ago. Well, they proved it was in the stomach because tests showed that. But they had to prove, just because it's in your stomach doesn't mean it's in your bloodstream. They had to prove it was in his bloodstream. So they take his 2,000-year-old mummy and they do a skin graft. And guess what showed up? One bar. But enough to know that fungus, food poisoning, that fungus was in his bloodstream. 2,000 years ago, he was run down and brutally murdered. And when he was murdered, he was having convulsions, and they thought that was part of witchcraft then. Well, I'm trying to remember the whole story. It's on YouTube. You can type it in. I'm trying to get you to do that. That's why I'm making this video. It's 44 minutes long. Once you start watching it, you won't be able to turn it off. And they couldn't do optane. This kind of makes you almost want to respect any religion, because 2,000 years ago they mummified the body due to religion. 1692 they didn't. They just buried them. Well, they can't do autopsies on the witches in 1692, but they can do an autopsy on a mummified body 2,000 years old. Yeah, because, normal bodies buried, the bones will last a few hundred years, but those graves of 1692, those witches, their bodies are long gone. But that 2,000-year-old body, because of a religion, they mummified it, thank God, they was able to do that autopsy and prove it was in the stomach, and proof through a skin graft of a 2,000-year-old dummy that fungus, top poison, food poison, and he is having the same symptoms as LSD gives you. especially in the 60s. But they've proven that. So you still got to say 99.99% in 1692, when everybody was having convulsions, you know, the whole 9 yards, needle pricks to the skin, the town doctors were blaming. They had to come. The town was begging for a diagnosis. When the doctor says witchcraft, they were hung. Little do they know, 99.99%, they'd all ate wheat, and it contained that fungus because it was grown in the swampy areas. But those maps, man, they verify wherever every witch was hung, and that same area in 1692 was real swampy. So the map showed these red dots of all the hangings, and maybe blue dots showed of all the swampy areas where that wheat was growing, where that fungus can grow. When the fungus can't grow unless it's real wet and swampy, and all those areas matched. So 99.99%, ladies went to the gallows perfectly innocent.